Today I'm going to take the Doggos and Hounds of Khorne to absolutely obliterate the worst possible place on the Immortal Empire's map. It is, of course, Ulthuan, where the High Elves reside. Blech. It makes me sick just thinking about going there, but I'm willing to do it for your enjoyment. Now, while I will be using primarily Doggos, that gives me only 2 units to use, which probably isn't very exciting to watch, so we're going to open it up to anything on 4 legs, which will give us the Blood Crushers and Skull Crushers, who are on a Juggernaut, which is kind of a doggy-looking unit, and Cavalry, because horses are basically just big dogs anyway, right? And there's only one that can lead an army of dogs, because he's the only legendary lord for Khorne. It is, of course, Skarbrand, who is basically an honorary dog, just on 2 legs. So, Skarbrand campaign, very hard, a little stat boost, let's go. As per usual, we must disband our starting army, which is mostly infantry, leaving us with just 1 unit of Doggo and Skarbrand. But we do have a hero who can get on a Juggernaut, so we will allow him in the army. The starting Orc army we're supposed to take on is likely a little too much for us, so we're going to fall back because we only need to construct this tier 2 building to get Flesh Hounds, who are going to make up the bulk of our army, because Lord knows Chaos Warhounds aren't going to be winning us any battles. But they'll have to do for now, alongside some Throwing Axe Horsemen, and once we do get the Flesh Hounds, we're going to make the push for our first settlement. In this battle I used the Throwing Axes to try and wear down the cavalry, the stronger, more dangerous stuff, and I charged in Skarbrand to try and disrupt those frontline Savage Orc units, because I don't want them to charge into my Doggos primarily, because they've got a decent charge themselves, so the safer we can keep the Doggos, the better. They'll be able to do more work. And all the while I had Skarbrand trying to chase down their lord, because if I can kill him off, it's going to break their leadership, and they're low leadership anyway. So once that was done, they didn't last long, and we got ourselves a Pyrrhic victory. Lost a couple of units, but that's fine, we can re-recruit those. I then proceeded onwards to try and take the rest of this province as quickly as possible, although there was a top-notch army around to resist us. I recruited a second lord to pull the old ambush trick to try and get that army out away from the garrison. They did come out and get us, we didn't get an ambush, but still a battle we should be able to win. I used pretty much the same tactics as before, trying to break their leadership rather than trying to beat them in raw killing power, because that's what the Greenskins do best. So instead we can take their leadership with lots of flanking, Skarbrand charging around with his terror, and killing that enemy lord as quickly as possible to again give that big leadership penalty. This gave us Gor Gazan, and we were well on our way. But I anticipated this campaign was going to have one big problem, in that we're not going to be able to use Bloodhost armies because they're mostly full of infantry, which means I am going to need to keep Skarbrand fighting as much as possible, and maybe a second army too, just to keep everything up, because my growth and such for all my buildings and improving my settlements is tied to how many battles I have. So if I sit around for too long, I'm basically going to have no growth. I'm also buffing up my Doggos wherever possible in Skarbrand's skill points with Ferocious Hunters that gives speed and charge bonus, and I can also get them a bonus versus large in the tech. But what I really need is Karanak, who can bring all the doggy buffs, but we got to get Skarbrand to level 16 before we can recruit him. So I'm trying to get Skarbrand in as many battles as I can, not just to level him up, but also to keep his bloodletting high so we can get that growth and everything else. This leads me to start taking a second province through Stormhenge and Galbaraz, but as I come to take the final settlement of Grunty Mingal, I find some smelly undead pirates there. Ronnie the Creeper, no less. That sounds like a nickname for that weird kid you went to school with. I decide it's a good time to go after Ronnie the Creeper and declare war on the Vampire Coast, because I've got the top knots mostly beaten up now. However, their army is fairly large with a lot of guns, but a little bit of strategic prowess might just lead us to victory. One way we can deal with a much larger force is to try and break it up into 2. In this case, I'm going to try and ignore this whole part of the enemy army. It's kind of behind all the rocks anyway, so for now I'm just going to focus on absolutely smashing this right-hand side of their army, ideally concentrating all of my force into a few units at a time, getting rid of them and then sweeping and moving down the line. We also have the major speed advantage here, so we can get behind them quickly and flank and envelop them so that their units break quickly. Also, with the help of Skarbrand, who is slowly becoming more and more powerful and more of a force to be reckoned with just by himself, we're able to put these chewy zombie units away very quickly. There is a bunch of Free Company militia, but we can break their leadership. And then once we've finished up on this right side, we can move towards the center, and all that stuff on the left will still be kind of coming over. I've had my missile cavalry harassing them and drawing their attention as well. And as always, having Skarbrand go after their lord and get rid of them as soon as possible is only going to help us as well. So bada bing, we get rid of that larger army pretty comfortably. We do lose a few units in the process, but we can raise this up and wait for our corny mechanics to take it. And we're well on our way to getting 2 solid provinces and readying ourselves for that assault on Ulthuan. Now on occasion I had other factions threaten me with war unless I gave them money, and I paid them off just to keep them at bay for now. I want as few wars as possible really, so I'm not delayed in getting to Ulthuan. I also started to make myself a small second army around this time as well, just so I could try and speed things along, although money was tight. I pretty much got the top knots finished off. The beastmen came and took one of their settlements, and I took their remaining one. And then I decided to go after the beastmen as well to A, get rid of them, and B, take this third province, and that should give us a nice little home base to go and attack Ulthuan from. The beastmen had a couple of armies around, but they weren't any problem to deal with. Their armies typically were made of low leadership crappy units, so much like the greenskins, we would aim to break their leadership rather than beat them in a full-on fight. So lots of flanking, enveloping, Skarbrand charging around with his terror. As I came back to replenish at Galbaraz, though, that cheeky bitch Yvresse came along and tried to take Galbaraz, and while I only had a small army and I figured I'm probably not going to win this, I'm going to have a good go at trying to damage them as much as possible. So I made sure all my towers were firing, trying to maximize damage output. I sent my units outside to keep the enemy units fighting in front of the towers. I did manage to sneak out the 2 units of doggos as well, who found some undefended deck gunners and artillery and absolutely ran them through. And of course with Vampire Coast their units completely disintegrate and disappear, so I just wanted to make their army much smaller. And I actually did a pretty good job of taking out most of their army in this one. I pretty much destroyed this entire large attacking force from this one direction, but from the other side of the city about 3 or 4 units of Mongols came and we couldn't finish those off. We were too beaten up, so we didn't win, but we did get a lot of damage done, which set up Skarbrand to come and reclaim it. Now I got given a new Blood Reaper hero, but whenever I clicked on him he seemed to love having a good old shout.
Hunger to slay! Blood Reaper!
So it seemed that his name, Huntmaster Kron Bullsworn, wasn't really accurate, so I changed his name to something more fitting, which I decided was Shoutmaster Flex. You know, like legendary 90s hip-hop DJ Funkmaster Flex, but a shouty version.
Let blood flow!
Now at this point I nearly got my 3 provinces done. I've got the Marshes of Madness. I think Wurzag must have raised up this last settlement and then we just got it for free. I then pushed to Gronti Mingau, the last settlement I needed, got rid of the Vampire Coast there again. Thought I was safe from them for a while, but apparently not. They brought another army and sacked Stormhenge. So I went over there to bonk them on the head, got the regiment of renowned doggos along the way, and then all along the next turn I got a non-aggression pact with Queek, which is always helpful, got declared war on by Archon, and attacked by that Vampire Coast army. And while this could have been a Pyrrhic victory, I would have lost pretty much all my army, so I needed to fight this one. Pretty much the same old usual tactics, to be honest. Work to treat. The only problem was the flying units I couldn't do anything about, but they weren't enough to stop us. After that, I cleaned up the rest of this army to get the Vampire Coast completely out of here and secure my borders. And it was all coming together now. I got Skarbrand to level 16, so I was able to get Karanak. I'd already pre-built the building ready for him. So now our doggos were going to get far more dangerous. Just in time to eat some elves. We also had Yvresse come along and get peace with us, so perfect. We didn't need that war anymore. Wurzag came along and offered a non-aggression, so perfect. We don't have to worry about him. And what's more, Wurzag even finished off the beastmen I was warring with, so it saved me a job having to finish them off. Beautiful. From here I started to muster my forces and sort out my army. I had one big, stronger army and then just a really small little one for now because I didn't have the funds for much more than that. I quite luckily as well was able to get peace with Archon because he was going to be a worry that he'd just come in and take all my stuff, but luckily some Skaven came along and started taking all his shit, so he didn't want to mess with us anymore. And with all these stars aligning, it seemed like now was the time, so I headed for Ulthuan. As I arrived, I sent in Shoutmaster Flex to scout around and see what we were dealing with, and I found some Vampire Coast had taken some of the High Elf territory, so this was great. This was going to take a little bit of the heat off me, and had perhaps pulled armies away from Lothern, because this was undefended and going to be my first target, declaring war on Etain, which was going to be a huge blow for them if I could take this, because it's a tier 5 settlement. So I wasted no time and went straight for it as soon as possible, and my mostly doggo army had to deal with an army of mostly archers. GG Elves. I used a bit of cunning deception in this one, sending Skarbrand and my hero towards one door, which made the enemy put all of their units over this side, and then on the other side of the map I had all my doggos hidden away, and then I brought out the Hounds to take care of the doors, because as we all know, just like in real life, dogs are great for chewing through 6-inch thick wooden and metal doors in no time at all, which of course facilitated the entry of the rest of my doggos, meaning there were dogs fucking everywhere. Back on the other side of the map, I was having not so much fun as Skarbrand was bugged and stuck in the door and wouldn't move, and we just stood there getting shot, losing all of his health. Good funny fun. My dogs, though, were pouring through the city, and I was going for the victory objectives in this one, trying to take both of those and just getting the victory that way, which I managed to do fairly quickly, given that we had a massive speed advantage, as they had mostly infantry, and any infantry that did come our way was just munched down quickly, because it was mostly archers. So a comfortable victory, which we were gonna need, because I was expecting a lot of high elf armies to all converge on me pretty soon. Now, of course, I'd saved up some skulls to be able to take this right away, so I could have a little base of operations, and I actually forgot that when I take it, it's still going to be a tier 4 settlement. And what do you know, it's already got the cavalry building constructed, which means I can get blood crushers right now. I think we call that an absolute victory. Now, while Skarbrand was becoming pretty powerful in his own right, as Skarbrand does, Karanak was now getting his skill points to start buffing up our doggos. This 5% physical resistance from this skill point here, and the ability to summon a unit of flesh hounds. And we could also take Alpha Hound to give all of our doggos stalk and reduce their upkeep. Very nice. And over the next turn, I used his doggy powers, putting him in the smaller army, which only had a few warhounds and the Lord, and I was able to take one of the other nearby settlements of Yvresse, and sack it for a very nice 8 grand, because I was pretty short on money right now, so this was my plan, to sack and raise as much as possible and make my money that way. I'm half expecting somebody to start taking all of my 3 provinces back home, so the sooner I can get a big bunch of money in the bank, the better. Over the turn though, a stinking Avelorn army came and besieged me at Ulthuan, so I brought over my smaller army. We had to attack them there and then. And for a second I thought I was playing multiplayer again, because these filthy elves were corner camping in the trees. My doggos, though, were ready and waiting to launch a big flank offensive, as I was just sending in the crappy garrison infantry first to try and draw some attention and open things up a bit, and then all my doggos were going to come in from the left and just absolutely get behind them and ruin all of their stupid little elf lives. We just needed to make sure they couldn't use all of their missiles, and we were okay. We were able to chomp through the dragon and the treekin, their tougher units, and I won't make you watch any more of this horrible tree battle. So we took a Pyrrhic victory there. We did lose a few units of doggos, so we need to try and re-recruit them as quickly as possible. A bunch more skill points for Skarbrand and Karanak as well, so buffing them up and our doggos even further there. And as I feared, all of the elf armies from all of the different factions started to converge on me. I fought them off as best as I could with my beaten up army. Another battle in the trees, and guess what? Another corner camping high elf army. I should have expected no less from filthy, cowardly elves. I managed to beat them away, but then another army in a bit came to get me. I decided to try retreating away from this one, which I did, but then an Yvresse army came and got me instead, which we had to fight, but it was fine. It looked winnable. My small army had to hide in the trees while we waited for the reinforcements. Their army made a small boo-boo though, sending over a missile cavalry, which made a nice pre-battle snack for some of our hounds. And then they sent over a couple of flying units, one of which was Eltharion, and this is where they made the major boo-boo. Because guess who just arrived as reinforcements? The big man. And he was gunning straight for Eltharion, who was right there for the taking. He had his back to him, he didn't even see it coming. I popped all of Skarbrand's buff, so he was doing a mighty 1.4k damage per hit, so Eltharion naturally wasn't going to last long. What is Skarbrand doing to this griffin? This is a fucking family show, Jesus Christ. Whatever happened, we ended up with a dead elf, so absolute victory. We then just needed to munch down the infantry, which was no issue. There was a bunch of missiles. There were some tougher Silvering Guard, but we were able to get through those slowly but surely. And with that victory, we pushed Yvresse back, but the Ulthuan boys were still there, so we had to get rid of them. Another goddamn battle in the same situation. I could get a pretty decent auto-resolve Pyrrhic victory on this, losing a few doggos. And I decided to take that because, well, I couldn't be bothered to fight these goddamn battles anymore. I wanted to move away and actually make some progress. But alas, that was not allowed, as Attain had another army that came to get me. I had to fight this one because I was going to lose all my flesh hounds if I didn't, and they were getting pretty high rank right now, so I had to fight another battle around Ulthuan, but this time it was a choke point battle at least, so something a bit different, and I was able to funnel them all into the choke point and use my doggos and my newly recruited blood crushers to absolutely smash them all in a big ball and make a lovely elven stew. And with that victory, we were able to finally get some breathing room, as there were no other immediate high elf armies about to attack us. So I could now replenish, recruit, and start making some progress and taking out these high elf settlements, starting with the rest of my Ulthuan province. So I started with a nice easy take just to the west, but over the turn I noticed that there was a lot of armies amassing to my east. So I came back, set up an ambush, and managed to get one of the Avelorn armies. Somehow I was able to get a decisive victory auto-resolve against a 6-dragon army, so I did not look that gift horse in the mouth, and I took it. But of course, 3 seconds later, I was then attacked by an Yvresse army, which again I decided to auto-resolve. It was only going to cost me 1 unit of doggos, and I was bored of fighting these damn battles. And with those victories, I again had a little bit of space to push out and go and start taking more of the territory I needed for my first Ulthuan province. Now, I also found that the Dark Elves had made their way over here as well. The Cult of Pleasure had been taking some stuff off the High Elves, so that was helpful to me. But those are still Elves on my Ulthuan. So we'll have to get rid of them at some point, but for now, I need to get rid of these smaller High Elf factions that I've got beaten down. The Blue Vipers have moved in here. I could live side by side by Greenskins. They're allowed to stay. And now I again had a little space to do some work, so I pushed out to take some settlements. I pushed a little bit east, but mostly west to try and get rid of Ulthuan. Both my armies were getting stronger along the way here as well. My second army had got some Flesh Hounds and a couple of Blood Crushers. And we had Ulthuan on their last legs now. They had about 2 settlements left. I needed to get rid of them so that I don't have so many High Elf factions to deal with, all building their own bunch of armies. Shoutmaster Flex was still about, expressing himself calmly.
Let blood flow!
I had him going in for some assassinations.
That river takes skull!
He's such a level-headed guy. Nice work, Shoutmaster Flex. Grokgar, who's back near my home provinces, tried to extort me, so I told him to shit right off, trying to make me pay him 8 grand. I may live to regret that, though. As I was pushed out west, though, the Avelorn army came and took out those poor orcs and tried to besiege Ulthuan. I did fight this one to get a better result because our army was pretty well equipped to deal with what they had, and that was the end of them. And again, we had a bit more space for more expansion. So I pushed to finally take control of this Ulthuan province, taking the last 2 settlements, and I had Ulthuan pretty much done for now, and finally getting this full province, we now had a really nice base to work from to take out the rest of Ulthuan. And I figured my second army's lord had finally done enough to earn a doggy name promotion. Festergax became Festerwolf Helldog. Or Helk Dog? No. Helldog, there we go. More lizards back home tried to extort me, and they got told to scheisse right off as well, so we'll see if they come after my home provinces. I don't really care at this point. If I lose them, not a big deal. I now moved to take care of the last Ulthuan settlement and get them wiped off the map. And I just realized I think I keep calling them Ulthuan when they're actually called Etain. Ulthuan is my city. Now, as I had 50 grand in the bank, I decided it was time to expand operations and get a 3rd army. But as I just got rid of 1 High Elf faction, another 2 start showing their faces. Cathik attacking us here, breaking up my beautiful province that I've just captured. And over the other side, Illyrian are now pushing Skarbrand. We're being besieged at this settlement, and it's not looking great for us, so I'm going to try and get my other army over there to help out. But I can't get them there in time before they attack us, and we've got a fight on our hands. I'm going to lose all my Flesh Hounds, my gold chevron Flesh Hounds. Can't do that, so we got to fight it. Again, I pushed out and took the fight to them outside. They did have a fair few archers and some artillery, so plenty of stuff we could easily run down with our doggos. And with our towers constantly firing as well, it wasn't too much of an issue. Plus, you know, Skarbrand. I tried to get rid of any armies I could before taking settlements, because they were probably just going to take them back otherwise. And some of these were especially laughable when half of their army was archers. For this one, I sent Skarbrand and the heavy cav in the front to deal with the melee infantry. They, of course, come with their big heavy charge bonuses, especially the Knights of the Brazen Throne. And then I had an almighty doggo flank coming in from the left side, just absolutely munching down all the tasty little high elf archers. Elf thigh is my doggo's favorite flavored treat, so they were beside themselves. With them out the way, I was able to take some of Illyrian stuff. The Eagle Gate here, that was going to be a nice little defensible point for us. Things were a little bit worrying back near Ulthuan, though, as a couple of stacks were knocking around. Yvresse had come back. I managed to get a block army on them. I'm not sure it was going to help much here, but I set up an ambush, which managed to get them. Eltharion obviously not learned his lesson from the last time we ambushed him. I'm pretty sure his Griffin hasn't forgotten about it, though. Another Cathik army comes at us from somewhere. Who knows? They're a decisive victory away from death, so we're going to take that. I'm then going to push on one of their settlements, and I'm going to try to get rid of Safari now, as I've got them down to their last few settlements. And like I said earlier, it's better if I can single out a certain faction and get rid of them, rather than trying to fight like 5 factions at the same time. But over the turn, as I see, the Unicorn Gate is there for the taking of Safari. There are 3 Avelorn armies nearby as well, so I do not want to get converged on by all of those. So I do need to be careful. I'm going to stay back here, set myself up in ambush. I'll be able to retreat if I need to. Back over the other side, Festerwolf is taking a settlement to try and get the auto-taking of the other settlements in the region, although one of them is still occupied by Yvresse. I start using my 3rd army to take out what I can, a small little settlement taken off Avelorn there. The Dread Fleet are around. You can see some Vampire Coast there. They might help us out, taking on the Elves as well. But as you can see, we're slowly but surely getting there, turning the donut red. We've nearly got rid of Safari. I'd like to get rid of Yvresse, the other smaller faction, and then deal with the larger faction in Avelorn. But Avelorn are still hanging around this area. I can't get near Safari to finish them off, not without it being a little too risky. One of their armies is pushed out west, Dark Elves, giving them some trouble as well, so that's helpful for us. Avelorn, though, coming to attack Eagle Gate and sacking it here as they don't seem to take it, and then the Dark Elves seem to take them out because they're just not here anymore. So that's one of the Avelorn armies out the way, courtesy of some other elves. I do enjoy seeing elf on elf crime, but I do spy myself an opportunity as it looks like the Avelorn armies have moved away from this region, and I'm going to take a risk diving in here. I can't see what's ahead. No extra Avelorn armies here, which means their main settlement of Gain Vale is quite undefended and mine for the taking. So Skarbrand is going to trot his little hoofs over to Gain Vale that is undefended by the garrison, which is mostly archers again. And as we can win this as a Pyrrhic victory, losing no units, I'll take it. And thank you very much, Avelorn. I've now taken their strongest, most profitable, most useful. Hold up, 68 grand for sacking. Don't mind if I do, sir. I'll come back and take it in a second. And because this is Avelorn's starting settlement, it's no doubt cost them a lot of money to lose that, and they won't be able to recruit their best units. So it looks like we might be dismantling them first. And as they've got no armies around defending these settlements with pretty small garrisons, I guess we'll raise these to the ground too. So I'm going to keep pushing around, taking all these settlements, and Avelorn is now in a very bad way, which I know you'll be glad to hear. Now, while all this was going on, I was sending my other two armies down towards Yvresse to try and finish off this province and push on to Yvresse itself. I set up another ambush here, 80% chance on this one. I had Shoutmaster Flex attempt another assassination, which... he succeeded again. I'm pretty sure he just shouts them to death. And because Eltharion is dumber than a box of rocks, we got another ambush on him. That's 3. I'm starting to feel a little bit bad for him. I'm only joking. He's an elf. Blech. We're slowly getting there, though, as the donut becomes more and more red. We do take out the city of Elesali here, and we'll just wait for this to become ours. We're going to raise it up and let the mechanics take it for us. One of our smaller armies nearly gets done in, but we're able to retreat, thankfully, and they don't come after us. Back over on Skarbrand's side, I find that someone has raised up the Phoenix Gate off of Safari. I guess it's Silostra, who has appeared up in the north here as well. So a free gate for us. Back on the other side, another ambush set up for this Yvresse army. We're going to get him again. Apparently, we're really good at ambushing Yvresse, or they're just really not good at seeing ambushes. But now maybe we can head for Yvresse itself. And over the next couple of turns, we can. I'm actually going to besiege Yvresse itself, which does have a large garrison and a bit of an army outside. But the army is outside, so while we're besieging, we can bring over our other army to take on the smaller army. And they are going to run away. That is Eltharion himself. And that is going to set us up to absolutely obliterate the city of Tor Yvresse. And Eltharion will go down as probably the worst elf general in history in this campaign. I then have Skarbrand circle around and come in from that northern direction to take on Cathik. And with that help, it doesn't take long for us to finish off this side, absolutely destroying Cathik and Yvresse. And that makes the donut even redderer, as all the ruined settlements start to get filled in as well. So we're most of the way there now. We've just got to get rid of the other elves left on this continent. Those damn dirty dark elves, and maybe Silostra as well. But oh, Grand Hierophant Hetep has decided to declare war on me, because why not, eh? Because I'm nowhere near him and I'm not a threat to him, and yeah, obviously this makes sense. Also, old man Ironbrow comes along and declares war on us as well, and he's the one that I was kind of waiting for, that I was kind of expecting to invade my territory at some point. And of course he is going to, and he's going to start taking all of my shit back home, literally, over the turns. He pretty much gets rid of everything over there. But we're not worried. We're about to get the entirety of Ulthuan all to ourselves, declaring war on the Dark Elves here, the Cult of Pleasure. I start taking their settlement in the north with Skarbrand and bring my other armies in from the south and make my way up around the western side. I also hit the one settlement they had on the eastern coast, trying to take out as much of their Ulthuan territory as quickly as I could before they could respond. But they didn't even really seem to respond at all. There were none of their armies on Ulthuan. They all seem to have buggered off somewhere. So a lot of free real estate, and we've got the donut mostly red now. They did seem to be gathering some armies just across the Black Sea, though, on our western borders, which I didn't like the look of, so I went to sort them out, raised up the settlement on the edge here, and tried to make sure that they wouldn't bother us while I went to take the rest of Ulthuan. Which is what I went to do next, heading north towards Silostra to take those settlements off her. But there was an army and a bit coming, so I had to come back to defend. I wasn't sure we'd be able to defend without Skarbrand. But over the turn, while the smaller army came ashore, the larger one seemed to disappear, which is a bit strange. But we had some slightly bigger problems as Nagorond was arriving on the continent. They seemed to be at war with Silostra. They've taken her out. So I sent Skarbrand up there to thwart their assault before they got too busy. But whoa, over the turn they got a bit ballsy, and so we went ballsy back on them with the dog ball formation. Everyone knows a dog's best friend is a ball, not a human man. So we march in a ball-like formation that poses absolutely no advantage, no strategic value, but you try telling dogs not to march in a ball formation. They fucking love it. So we spread out as we got closer. That was pretty much the gist of it. We sent in a few doggy phalanxes here and there, cutting straight through the middle of their front line to get behind them with ease, get after their artillery and missiles. And of course, slowly but surely, we munched our way through them. Our dog's pretty strong now with all the skill points from Skarbrand, from Karanak, and from their own ranking up. Not to mention we got regiments of renown and blood crushers in there, so we're pretty damn formidable, not even counting Skarbrand. Over the turn, I then continue on to attack Tor Anlek and take that off of them. They've got a lot of shades in there. That's tasty munchies for all our doggos. But while this has been going on, the Cult of Pleasure's armies have come out of the woodwork and are pushing heavy on my west and southern side of Ulthuan, taking a bunch of my settlements, giving me goddamn problems I gotta go back and fix. I do have my pretty strong second army back here now though, defending Festerwolf, and he is being besieged though by Marathi herself, so we're actually going to take this fight because we got a couple of extra units here in this army as well, as I've gone and recruited myself some soul grinders, because I thought they had 4 legs, but they actually have 6, so whoops, but hey, they still got 4 legs technically, they just got 2 extra ones. Shut up. This army is pretty tough though, they got some strong units in here, they got a bunch of single entity monsters, so something a little bit different for our doggos to deal with, but we've got the anti-large bonus against these, so that should help us out as long as we can surround them well. But overall, while this army did have some strong units, demonettes and shades and charybdises, they were all outmatched by the strength of Doggo and maybe some blood crusher power as well, so they took a good old pounding, which freed us up to go and reclaim some of the territory they'd taken off us. They tried their luck with us on occasion, but Skarbrand was back down here now, so we didn't really have anything to worry about. We just needed to mop up what was left of these damn dirty cultists. I then went and reclaimed all my lost territory in no time at all, but just as I thought things were done and we were over and we were finally going to get the fully red donut, a bunch of Nagaron clown dicks came in from the north, so we had to defend against them and get rid of them and wait for all the other settlements to turn to ours as well. Some of them were still ruins. But these 3 armies weren't too much of a problem. Luckily, we were able to take them out fairly quickly once I brought Skarbrand and everyone back up here. And eventually, once we got rid of them and we let all the ruined settlements turn to ours, the Red Donut had become a reality, a land of true corn dogs. And not an elf in sight, how life should be. By this point, I'd lost everything back home. As you can see, Thorak had taken it all. Elspeth came and took a little bit of it, but we didn't care. We got the donut, baby. In large part to the doggos, of course, Karanak buffing the doggos up nicely, and Skarbrand, of course, himself is a force to be reckoned with. And it wasn't all doggos, we had the blood crushers and such as well, but we got it done. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. Hey, you want more of this stuff? I got a playlist right here. Thanks to all the patrons who support this channel, and I will see you in the future.